starts with the injury reports. We learned very early in the day there would be no Donovan Mitchell, who was ruled out of this game. Evan Mobley was ruled out of the game as well. And then the very, very strange news update that James Harden had actually suffered a fractured thumb. His status was set to questionable for this game. Even Kenny Atkinson, when we met with the coaches prior to the game, pretty ambiguous on whether or not we would see James Harden in this game. He was ultimately ruled out. And a Cavs team that is still playing without Max Strus. But, as Doc Rivers quickly pointed out when he was asked prior to the game, hey, how do you make sure, for lack of a better phrase here, make sure you don't fall victim to a trap game against this team. We heard from Doc, look, we are still playing without Giannis. So you can point out all the players the Cleveland Cavaliers are down. Let's not lose sight of the fact that we are without one of the three best players in the league. But along the way here, the Bucks have started to find some things. And we have continued to hear from Doc Rivers the phrase silver linings, and sometimes you find something. You find that flower that grows out of the concrete. You find something where you didn't expect to see it or you really didn't want to look for it. And it does feel like that's what the Bucks have settled into here. Giannis has missed 13 consecutive games now. That is the longest stretch of his career to miss any time. The Bucks have gone 8-5 now with this win tonight in those games that Giannis has missed most recently. Doc talked about that prior to the game as well. Well, we're playing better now without Giannis because we've got experience at it. We went through a couple of stretches earlier this season. We weren't good enough, right? We didn't do the little things. We weren't rebounding the basketball. We weren't hitting shots. We weren't playing defense to the level that we're currently playing defense. So there are a lot of things we just were not doing good enough. And now we've learned from it. We've grown from it, and we're doing those things. We're checking the little boxes. We're rebounding the basketball. We're finding roles and carving out opportunities for other guys, and we are seeing young guys start to take off and flourish here and advance their game. That is what has stood out the most with this Bucks team. You can point to the teams that they've beaten. You can point to the fact that, again, tonight, this Cavaliers team in the standings, a pretty good team. The players that were available, not that team we're accustomed to seeing. Doesn't matter. At some point, you got to start winning. You got to start to stack these successes. We've seen the Bucks fall victim to teams that were shorthanded in the past and have some very, very tough losses. This is a ship that's moving in an entirely separate direction. Now, look, we talked about Sunday's performance last night on the show. No doubt it was disappointing. Sometimes games like that, it does need to happen. You do need to go through those lumps. The important part of all of this, as I tried to make 2 points coming out of the All-Star break. Number one, the most important games on your schedule. Those are the games against the teams that are directly in front of you in the standings, those play-in tournament teams right now, be it the Atlanta Hawks, who you got 2 games left against, the Miami Heat, who you beat last night. You got 1 more game left against Miami. The Orlando Magic with 1 game left against them. You're done with the Charlotte Hornets. Those games and those teams that are behind you in the standings, those teams that may or may not be tanking, but they're in the lower third of the league. Those games, there were 13 of them coming out of the break. Those games are going to decide where the Bucks finish in the standings. Right? I'm not saying you need to go 13-0. If you go 10-3, you're going to be in the postseason. You're going to make the play-in tournament because those wins are coming number one teams you should beat, but also against those teams you're chasing. And the odds are that's going to win you the tiebreaker in each of those scenarios should you need it. That's one thing to keep in mind. Like these wins are nice. You're going to take them. You're going to need wins like this, right? You need to have some proof of concept here. But the other games against Atlanta, those types of games, Miami, down there in South Beach that you have once more in a couple of weeks, Orlando, a game you're going to be facing them without Franz Wagner once more. Those are the games that are going to decide how far this team goes. And the other thing is losses are going to come. As cliche as it is to sound, you're not going to win every single game. You're not going to close the season on a 31-game win streak. You're going to drop some games along the way. You're probably going to drop consecutive games. You may have a losing streak even. But how do you look in those losses and how do you respond? How do you bounce back from those losses, especially after a game like Sunday against the Raptors and the way we saw the Bucks respond not only against the Miami Heat last night, but how they carried it over even against a shorthanded team, how they carried it over tonight and closed out the game against a Cleveland Cavaliers team that still has some talent and is still a very good team. Jalen Tyson has been one of their best players this season. He, similar to A.J. Green and some other players, he has really upped his scoring proficiency, up 10 points per game this season. You know what Dennis Schroeder is capable of doing. Jared Allen is still a former All-Star in this league. They have some nice pieces there. Keon Ellis, not too long ago, Keon Ellis was a young budding star for the Sacramento Kings. So even without the likes of Harden and Mitchell and Mobley, this is still a deep, talented Cleveland Cavaliers team, and the Bucks took care of business against them. Now, if you can keep it rolling even more against the New York Knicks team that has been very up and down so far this season, you turn things from bleak into an excellent homestand and go on the road for one game in Chicago against the Bulls. One of those 13 games we were talking about are those teams that have maybe started to softly or not so subtly pull the plug on the remainder of their season and get ready for enhancing their chances as much as they can to move up in the NBA lottery this spring. 855-616-1620 is the Siding Unlimited talk and text line to join us tonight on Bucks Talk. Another Bucks victory, 118-116, the final here inside of Fiserv Forum, as they now inch a half game closer to both the Charlotte Hornets and the Atlanta Hawks in the play-in tournament standings. And again, one game left on this homestand, I should note. Friday night against the New York Knicks. We will continue to take a look at that matchup. Not a whole lot to update you on in terms of the NBA scoreboard, as this was a relatively light night, but that does start to change here in the coming days, so we'll update you on those scores, the updated view of the standings as well, and take your thoughts. 855-616-1620, that's Siding Unlimited talk and text line to join us tonight on Bucks Talk as they win for the 8th time in the last 10 games. We discuss more after this on Bucks Talk.
This is Bucks Talk.
Wesley Financial Group is not a law firm.
Ask yourself this question. Is it really worth holding on to that timeshare that you know you need to get rid of? Here's the truth. The average maintenance fee just went up over 17%. That could have been 117%, and there's nothing you can do about it. When you buy a timeshare, you give them a blank check for annual maintenance and assessment fees. I'm Chuck McDowell, founder of Wesley Financial Group. For 15 years, I've helped over 50,000 families cancel their timeshare. Not sell it, not transfer it, cancel it. Did you buy a timeshare because they told you it was a great investment and your maintenance fees would never go up? That's a lie. Are you ready to get rid of your timeshare once and for all? Simply call us and I'll send you our timeshare exit kit that explains all your options for cancellation.
Call Wesley now for your timeshare exit kit. 800-747-1515. That's 800-747-1515. 800-747-1515.
Recently, a seller that unfortunately ended up choosing another agent called me. She said she made a mistake, and what she was expressing to me sounded like she kind of was bullied into signing with him. Is it typical? Not always, but it will never happen when you hire a Century 21 Benefit Realty agent. I want our agents to be able to look in the mirror and say, I'd want to work with me. Not because they're good at saying what you want to hear or offer the lowest commission, but because of trust. Because if you're not feeling that from your agent, that's a problem, and I don't want that. At 1.9% on the listing side of your sale with our commission capped at $19,000, Century 21 Benefit Realty leads with a very fair and transparent commission structure with maximum marketing that can get your home sold fast and for the best price. And saving money matters, but working with someone who'll tell you exactly what you need to know up front, that creates trust. And that matters too. This is Angela Calais with Century 21 Benefit Realty, benefit-realty.com, where you pay less for full service. Each office is independently owned and operated.
MW Marine.
Hey, Wisconsin anglers. This Saturday, head to MW Marine for a free fishing seminar. No reservation needed. Meet Warren Zarin from the Mercury Lund Pro Team. and learn West Coast bass techniques that flat out work in Wisconsin. Pick up tips you can use right away. And while you're there, check out the boats and get ready for your best season yet. This Saturday at MW Marine. Free, fun, and you're invited.
Welcome back to Bucks Talk.
Another Bucks win here tonight inside of Fiserv Forum as they take care of business against the banged-up Cleveland Cavaliers. 118 to 116. Again, they have now won 8 of their last 10 games overall here. And in the games that they have been playing most recently without Giannis, they're 8-5 in that 13-game stretch. You compare that to where this team was earlier in the season without Giannis. They are still 15-15 in games that Giannis has played in. But just look at that stretch. The games with Giannis and what you've done most recently. Looking at those games only, 23-20, it's not great. I'm not trying to make that case. But 23-20, in other words, just slightly better than 500. If that's the way you play for the duration of the season, it's a much different story for where this team is currently at, right? That's basically right around that 7 line, 7 or 8 in the Eastern Conference, where we're then talking about, okay, you're within striking distance of now moving up to 6th or 5th potentially in that conference and really changing what the discourse is surrounding this team. Took a little while to see this, but you're starting to see that consistency and growth now from this group. 855-616-1620 is that Siding Unlimited Talk and Text line if you want to join us tonight on Bucks Talk. Let's head out to the phone lines and start things in Lake Geneva with Andrew. You're up first.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Well, first off, I just want to start off with maybe what some might consider to be a bold statement. I don't think the Bucks are going to lose the game for the rest of the season. They're going to win the championship. That's how high I'm riding on the Bucks right now. They're so locked in. But I guess on a more serious note, somewhat, it's great to see the guys step up, especially in the absence of Giannis, especially tonight at the game. Jericho Sims, I was there, and some of the dunks and lobs he was hitting, I was levitating out of my seat. It's just really good to see him just sort of embrace the role and just setting tough screens, going to the basket, and just getting those lobs and dunks. But, I mean, there's a couple of boneheaded turnovers that he's had a couple games where I think he can cut down on. But overall, it's been so fun to watch him get these extended minutes and really prove that he's a NBA-caliber player. The other guys I'm a little worried about that have been sort of hot and cold flashes are Jang and Cam Thomas. It's been sort of love him and hate him. So far, I've been enjoying their play, but I'm really worried about the consistency, especially if the Bucks are able to get to a play-in playoff scenario. At what point do you roll with those guys, or just if their shots aren't falling, do you bench them? But I just want to get your thoughts on that. But yeah, Bucks are winning the championship.
Thanks for the call, Andrew, and the optimism as well. I mean, so with those two guys specifically, I don't have those concerns, frankly. I mean, if we just kind of look at the pecking order of things, and we are to assume that Giannis makes his return relatively soon. There were some thoughts and a bit of a back and forth on that before the game tonight with Doc Rivers and Jim Ozarski of the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. But, look, if we're to assume that Giannis is close, whether or not that means Friday, I think if you read between the lines and how Doc Rivers kind of phrased it, I'm not so sure we're going to see him on Friday. I don't know if we'd see him Sunday afternoon for that game in Chicago or if it means Monday. If he's close Monday, you got night 2 of a back-to-back, so we'll give you the extra rest there, and that's where you make your return. But when Giannis returns, there's going to be a trickle-down effect in how much it changes things for a lot of guys. Jericho Sims is potentially one of those guys. And I'm right there with you in what he has continued to show you for these past couple of weeks now. Really, these last 13 games since Giannis went down. One of the challenges early in the season, one of the many, is the Bucks were not rebounding the basketball. And I don't want to continue to beat it over the head, but the difference in shot attempts and what that does for your team success and your offense, that is driving a lot for the Bucks. And that has driven a lot here in this turnaround and the success that we've seen on that front. Now, tonight they did not win that true shooting battle. Is the big difference was the free throw attempts. 27-5 was the difference there. Field goal attempts were even, basically 88 for the Bucks, 87 for the Cleveland Cavaliers, but the free throw attempts made this very, very different here. They weren't doing any of that before. And we heard Darvin Ham say this after the game against the Oklahoma City Thunder of, look, what's changed? We're rebounding. We've embraced offensive rebounding. We're leaning into our size. We're trying to get those rebounds and understanding the importance of it. Like, we are even trying to get offensive rebounds. For the longest time, we heard, well, and it's not just Doc Rivers, to be clear. There's more coaches that have leaned into offensive rebounding early in the season this year, but a lot of your older traditional coaches still don't, because of the whole mindset of, if we do that, we're going to put ourselves at risk in transition, and let's just make sure we're getting back to stop an opponent transition offensive attack. But more and more teams have embraced it. Fred Katz wrote about it earlier this season. You've heard and seen more and more stories about, wow, look at these teams that are offensive rebounding now. Look what the Houston Rockets were doing when they had Steven Adams, and how much they really pushed the needle in terms of their work on the glass and the extra shot attempts that it created for them. Kenny Atkinson, the head coach of the Cavaliers, talked about it tonight too, when he was asked, a question about defense, and he turned it into an answer that revolved around rebounding, and said, honestly, the big difference here is that offensive rebounding has become the cheat code. Like the cheat code across the league for offenses to say, you know how we're going to get things going? We're going to get offensive rebounds. And Kenny referenced a sequence of, we had a moment in the game a couple of nights ago where we just tapped it off the backboard and just kind of played volleyball with it. It ended up in the hands of one of our guys who knocked down a three-pointer. Like, that is more effective than anything else. That has become the cheat code into really juicing your offensive numbers, is just get offensive rebounds. And the Bucks were not doing that. Ranked dead last in the league up until that prior 10-game stretch. Not only those 10 games, we've seen the numbers go up in terms of their volume, but it's gone up for other teams. But in the last 10 games especially, they've been better than average, right in the middle of the pack, right around 13th. It may not sound like much to go from 30th to 13th, and the difference that means in terms of your shot attempts versus the opponent's shot attempts. That's been the problem for the Bucks all season long, is their field goal attempts have been fewer than the opponent, because they're not getting extra shots with offensive rebounds, because they've, by the numbers, they're not one of the worst teams. They're right around the middle, but it's come in bunches when they turn the ball over. And they have cleaned both of those things up. Jericho Sims has been a huge, huge part of that. One of the challenges earlier in the season for Jericho Sims was trying to figure out, his skill set. Can we play this alongside Giannis? Do we have the opportunity to play Jericho Sims and another non-shooter? And I think what the coaching staff has done, and granted, we haven't seen it next to Giannis now, this version of how Jericho is playing. But what the coaching staff has done now is they have surrounded him with shooters, but we've seen some minutes where there's Jericho Sims and Kyle Kuzma on the floor. Granted, a lot of it has been Jericho Sims and Bobby Portis together, but they have made an effort to put Jericho Sims in a position to succeed. He's your screen setter out there at three. He's constantly rolling to the rim, and he's finishing every single shot attempt for Jericho Sims. He was 4 of 4 last night. He was 5 of 6 tonight. Every shot attempt is at the rim. Pull up his field goal attempts, pull up the shot chart, and you will see everything from Jericho Sims of late is coming at the rim. There were moments earlier in the season where he was kind of toying with a one-handed push shot or a floater. I still think he does need, it would serve him well to add something like that. But they've just found ways to get him in the paint, get him rolling to the rim, throw him lobs and dunks. And if you can do that, he's going to be effective offensively. There's going to be that gravitational pull of, oh no, especially if he's on the floor with A.J. Green. We're going to have to leave him open, or we're going to have to leave a shooter and A.J. Green open and help over onto Jericho Sims. So the question for me is, guys like Jericho Sims, when Giannis is back, what does that mean for his minutes? Because I think we have seen more than enough in these last 10 games to say, look, you can't just not play him. right? Even if you're adding a player that is better in Giannis and one of the three best players in the league, you cannot just remove him from your rotation. So whether or not it's, some minutes from Jericho are going to come down, some minutes from Bobby may come down, maybe Kyle Kuzma's minutes come down, maybe Miles Turner's minutes start to come down. It's a good problem to have, to say, hey, we got too many players that we want to play versus where they kind of were last year when he got to the end of the season and said, I think we've got 6, depending on the situation that you trust to throw out there. What happens when we need to get these guys a breather? That's where the problem comes in. So they're at least not there. Cam Thomas and Ousmane Dieng specifically. I mean, Ousmane Dieng is going to continue, should at least, to have a role on this team. Only 13 minutes tonight. You saw more of them last night. And if it does, in fact, just become we're still going to lean into these 3 guards. And I've talked about my feelings on that of I don't really love starting 3 guards. But if what you're telling me is, look, we're going to start these 3, but what's more important is what are the minutes for each of these guys and who's closing the game? Right, Kevin Porter Jr., Ryan Rollins, A.J. Green closed for you tonight. It's a Cleveland team that was down some of their bigger pieces. But the moments that you play those guys together, if that isn't quite as much, I don't care so much about who starts. But Ousmane Dieng is going to continue to have a role, even if it's only 15 or so minutes, because he's your only true small forward. And he's one with size. And look, tonight, by the numbers, it wasn't the best night that we saw from him. 1 of 6 from the field, only 5 points, minus 12 in the plus-minus. I didn't feel like he played quite as confidently tonight as he did last night. But again, the thing to keep pointing out is he's 22 years old. And Doc Rivers has talked about this too. 22 years old. He's only going to continue to get better. We have to develop him. Like literally, he is a free agent this summer, and you traded him for him. So you're going to have to see what's there and what you want to cultivate. You're going to have to pay him to keep him around. So I don't think he's going to be exiled from the rotation. And Cam Thomas, frankly, I don't know if some of us were just blinded by the 34-point game against the Orlando Magic, but this is basically Cam Thomas in a nutshell. And I don't mean it as a bad thing either. He is a guy that can score, and he is a guy that can do it in bunches. And there are going to be, if we look at a 10-game sample size, 2 or 3 games where Cam Thomas looks absolutely incredible, like that Magic game, like the game over the weekend where against the Pelicans, where he's up to 18 points in the quarter. He's going to have games like that. He's going to have 2 or 3 games where you don't even notice he's out there. And he's going to have, maybe more, 3 or 4 games that you don't notice he's out there. And he's going to have 2 or 3 games where not a great game. Like tonight, not horrible, but it wasn't his best outing. 7 points and 3 of 6 shooting in 16 minutes. Perfectly fine, not terrible, not great. That's the Cam Thomas experience and who he is. And really, that's the role that he's playing. As you've heard Doc compare him, not so much in terms of this is who he is exactly as a player, but the role to guys like Jamal Crawford and Lou Williams that Doc has coached at many stops throughout his career. Cam Thomas has some of those tendencies. And a lot of teams need a guy like that, where you're down one of your primary scorers. You're down Giannis. Maybe there's going to be a game yet where Giannis doesn't play and Kevin Porter Jr. misses the game, and you just need somebody to move the scoreboard for you. That's what Cam Thomas is out there for. So they've gone 9 deep, essentially, these last handful of games. It is going to be curious to see, do you go up to 10? Do you bump it up to 10 when Giannis makes his return? Somebody kicked out of the rotation, or are you playing 10 guys, but really 2 of those guys didn't get hardly any minutes because Giannis is back? But those 2 guys I have no worries about. I'm not worried about them leaving the rotation. Maybe to a lesser extent, Ousmane Dieng. I think he would be of the 2 the most at risk of saying, well, his minutes just completely evaporated when Giannis is back. And potentially when you get to the postseason. But Ousmane Dieng, he's exactly the type of body and guy that you need when you get into the postseason. 855-616-1620, the Siding Unlimited talk and text line to join us tonight on Bucks Talk. A couple of more calls to get to. Garrett in Greenfield is out there on hold. We'll get to you coming up after this on Bucks Talk.
You're listening to Bucks Talk.
Save on the best quality furniture and mattresses during the President's Day sale at Ken Michaels Furniture. With major discounts from our premier suppliers, you will save big bucks on top brands like Bradenton Young, Made in the foothills of the Great Smoky Mountains, Bradenton Young is known for its fine quality leather upholstery. Fjords brings you modern Scandinavian design recliners and sofas, ergonomically engineered for more hip and back support. Norwalk, with American roots that go back over 100 years, specializes in making furniture just for you. Choose the piece, style, fabric, or leather you want, and in just 35 days, we'll deliver your new sofa, chair, or sectional. In stock or special orders are all sale priced. Need a little help putting it all together? At Ken Michaels Furniture, our design staff is ready to help you with your purchases, and it's free. Stop in today and save now during the President's Day sale at Ken Michaels Furniture in Brookfield, Greenfield, or downtown Milwaukee.
So many emails coming in, this trip will sell out. Vince Vitrano here, Vinny's European Vacation. Would love to have you join us in October, traveling to southern Italy and Sicily with WTMJ and Colette Vacations. Our tour begins in Palermo, Sicily, happens to be where my dad's family is from. He's coming on the trip as well. Agrigento, Sorrento, Amalfi Coast, Positano, Pompeii, and we end in Rome. Nothing you need to do except sign up and show up, as my team at Colette has thought of and taken care of everything. I'll send you a brochure with a breakdown of each day on the trip, all the sites, sign-up information, and even your all-in cost and options. Email me, vince@WTMJ.com. That's vince@WTMJ.com. We've got a special get-together here at the station coming up as well. You can meet me, talk with all the folks at Colette. That's coming up on March 24th.
Let me show you the world. Come away with me.
Vince@WTMJ.com, Southern Italy and Sicily this fall.
Hey, John Mercure here for Azura Memory Care and Assisted Living. Their mission is to transform the culture of care. They specialize in caring for those with early to late-stage Alzheimer's or other related dementia symptoms, and they offer early memory loss classes to help you. They specialize in this area. It's kindness at the core, locations throughout southeast Wisconsin. It's compassion, it's empathy. It's Wisconsin-based and family-owned, always welcoming people to come tour and welcome their new residents. I've seen their places. They're top-notch. It's Azura Memory Care and Assisted Living.
The Roundball Repartee returns. This is Bucks Talk.
$118-116, our final tonight. The Bucks take care of business against the Cleveland Cavaliers, and with that, they've won 8 of their last 10 games, and they have also now gone 8-5 in this most recent stretch of play without Giannis. We'll see if that's 14 consecutive games on Friday night when the New York Knicks come to town and they wrap up this 4-game homestand, but they start a new 5-game homestand then next week. 855-616-1620 is the Siding Unlimited talk and text line to join us tonight on Bucks Talk. Let's head back to the phone lines and check in with Garrett in Greenfield. You're up next.
Yeah, hi. No, I just want to say how, talking about, Jericho Sims and stuff, I think another valuable thing with him, is defense and stuff. I mean, in that last possession, Schrader was, driving to the lane. He's pretty good with the floater, but Sims did a good job, contesting, making him altering the shot and such. And I think, that's volleyball as well and such. He's good at, altering his shots, getting his hands up, deflections. And then also another thing, too, I want to say, I felt like he's kind of really, grown a lot over the years is Ryan Rollins. I think he's become such an underrated defender. He did a good job, defending Schroeder today and such, and, was making shots tough for him. And then, I think that's, just kind of big going forward and such. I was going to say just, big win and a big confidence boost. And especially, with, if the playoffs, for example, if Giannis needs a rest, you can, rely on these guys to, play minutes to give Giannis that time so it doesn't have to get back and forth. But go Bucks and big win tonight.
Yeah, thanks for the call, Garrett. And I think just you look at where this team is now to where it was. I don't know. Honestly, the low point was probably right before this stretch started. But even beyond that, earlier in the season, the issue the Bucks ran into, and granted, some of the personnel has changed. I'm not saying this is entirely because of Ousmane Dieng's arrival and Cam Thomas. It's only 7 games you've had those two guys in a Bucks uniform for. But you just look at where this team was earlier in the season when the struggles were starting to mount. The problem, even when Giannis was healthy, was the non-Giannis minutes. The moment he left the floor is when trouble started to begin. And, unfortunately, it's the chicken and egg theory, too, of like, well, did this growth come because you had to figure it out, or is there something different here? And same with the, like, well, is this team good enough with Giannis off the floor? Sometimes you need to go through this stretch to get back to that point that Doc Rivers made of finding that silver lining. Sometimes the only way through it, the only way out of it, I should say, is through it. And in terms of player growth, like, you need to go through those moments where you just don't have Giannis to rely on. It is going to be a big change, too, when he does make his return. So don't make any mistake about that. For everyone, right, for Giannis included, to just say, look, by the numbers, we know you have been one of the most effective and best players in the league, but we ran into problems, even with you on the floor, when these guys would just stand around and watch you. And that's not necessarily Giannis's problem. A lot of this is player growth and how this team has seen the offense move and how they've seen things work when they do things a certain way. But for the current guys that have started to figure things out and play at this level, that's really the big thing, is even when we drop Giannis back into the mix of things, it is going to change a lot of things for us because of his usage amount and because of just how good of a player Giannis is. But that doesn't mean we can regress or should regress to playing the style and the way that we did before. Like, we need to meet in the middle here. We need to continue to play this way. And, Giannis, it's for the betterment of you as well, as you're nursing a calf strain, to maybe not put quite as much of a load on you. And if this was there prior to the injuries, if this was there earlier in the season, we shared the numbers of what they are in this most recent stretch at 8-5, 15-15 technically in games where Giannis has played. That does include that game he played very briefly against the Detroit Pistons. That includes the game against this Cleveland Cavaliers team earlier in the season where he played midway through the second quarter before exiting with the injury. But this stretch and the games where you've had him, you're 23-20. And as we noted, doesn't sound great for 43 games, but if you tell me that's the pace that you're going to be playing at, and we're talking about a team that, at that rate, 46-ish wins, somewhere around there, like, you get to 46 wins this season in the Eastern Conference, you're probably the 6th seed, maybe even the 5 seed. So it just shows you the difference on the margins. And, man, if only we would have done this, if only we would have gotten that, we'd be in a much, much different spot. But it may be a good thing that it took you this long to get there and that you had to discover some things, that it lended itself to really continuing the development of Ryan Rollins and Kevin Porter Jr. And frankly, part of the struggles early on are because of that, right? It's not a knock on either of those two guys. They're both still young players in KPJ and Ryan Rollins, right? Ryan Rollins just in his 4th year in the league, 23 years old. Kevin Porter Jr., only 25 years old. There's still a lot of growth to happen for those two guys, and they just need to continue to work through it and get the reps. And, the other thing that was funny, too, was you go back to prior to the game, and I mentioned some of the things that Kenny Atkinson had to say about rebounding and how that's kind of the cheat code and can unlock some things for any team's offense, not just Cleveland's. But talking about Ryan Rollins specifically, in that, his journey, he was a guy that Kenny Atkinson coached briefly in Golden State with the Warriors. And remember, that's where the career began for Ryan Rollins. The Golden State Warriors, the Washington Wizards eventually ended up there and then came over to the Bucks on a 2-way contract. But Kenny Atkinson talked about it and kind of joked, look, I take credit for Ryan Rollins. Me and Bob Myers, the former executive for the Warriors, as Kenny Atkinson was an assistant on Steve Kerr's bench when Ryan Rollins was there, and said, sometimes there's just guys that you have an affinity for. And he was it for me. I loved him. His speed. He was a super young guy that still, he still didn't know any better and still had to learn and grow into it. But I loved his talent and I loved his demeanor. He was just tough. One of those kids that you would say is tough as nails. Everything he did was fast. I was always pro Ryan Rollins. So to see all of it now development-wise, the Bucks have done a great job with him. And you have to give them credit to recognize that of what's there, stay with it, and work with it. And it's been a great story to watch. But he mentioned just overall the growth of, he was a good passer and a decision maker, and he was much more of a pure point guard than we really envisioned it in what we're seeing now. And I always really liked him. So to hear Kenny Atkinson talk about, we knew the passing was there, we knew he had the ability to be a point guard. You're seeing it really unlocked now. It's just funny in contrast to hear Doc Rivers talk about those two guys and still maintaining the point, which I think Kenny is largely getting to, of neither one of them are really a true point guard. But it does feel like what we've watched recently here, again, I go back to earlier in the season, and I do think he has a very, very strong chance to get to the point where we're saying, well, I can see the comp, but he is a much better player. But the comp is out there. I believe it was Marcus Johnson was the first to bring it up. There's a lot of George Hill. Like that, I'm reminded quite a bit of George Hill when I watch Ryan Rollins. Right around the same size, right? Very good length. Both have a very long wingspan for guards. And George Hill, nobody looked at and said he's a pure point guard. He can play point guard. He can be your backup point guard. He's a combo guard. Can knock down shots when you leave him open. I think there is more of an offensive skill set that we still haven't fully tapped into with Ryan Rollins, more so than there was with George Hill. But just in terms of their ability to seamlessly play off of another guard, even if it's a combo guard or a point guard, right? We saw George Hill and when George Hill was back here, we saw George Hill playing with other combo guards. Ryan Rollins and Kevin Porter Jr., I still think KPJ is more the pure point guard, but Ryan Rollins fills that role. He's a combo guard that can play the point guard, has the ability to create more offense than we saw from George Hill. And granted, we saw later stage George Hill here in Milwaukee, but has more offensive ability to do some things like we saw tonight. He's gotten really good at that elbow jumper, that step back three as well, but just getting into the paint and getting that step back shot at the elbow, finishing off the backboard too. He's done a great job getting into the paint and finishing with either hand. The offense continues to develop, and at times it feels like maybe the defense has taken a bit of a step backward. A lot of that, I think, is largely because of the absence of Giannis, especially weeks ago when Ryan had to really carry the offense, especially in moments when Kevin Porter Jr. was not on the floor. But both of those guys have grown so much so far this season that is, without a doubt, the biggest positive so far. And potentially Jericho Sims and Ousmane Dieng could get there as the secondary positives as well. Again, Ryan in continuing his development, and for Kevin Porter Jr. as well, the notion and just the overall thought on what Kevin Porter Jr. was when he came here. I think a lot of people just remembered the KPJ, ironically enough, from Cleveland with the Cavaliers. Not so much with the Clippers, because we've talked about it before. At the time of that trade a year ago, and we are probably now at right around 82 games that Kevin Porter Jr. has played in a Bucks uniform. Actually, probably not because of the injury earlier in the season, but we're past a year now that he's been in a Bucks uniform. At the time of the trade, by the numbers, Kevin Porter Jr. was one of the most inefficient offensive players in the league. He was not having a good season by the numbers. And you thought back to KPJ from Cleveland, KPJ from Houston, where, again, still a very, very young player that was 20 years old at the time. And you can just develop this stigma, right? You see a guy, and I know what he is. I know what that guy is. Never mind the fact that he's young. Never mind the fact that neither of these teams he's been with, neither of those have been winning environments with veterans that are going to help bring you along. Coaching changes. When he was in Houston, wasn't a great situation for anyone. he goes to Los Angeles. We mentioned the numbers weren't great, but he was around a veteran coach like Ty Lue, who had nothing but great things to say about Kevin Porter Jr. to Doc Rivers, and around a lot of veteran players, too. And sometimes that's what you need more than anything. At the time of his arrival, I think a lot of us just thought, I know what Kevin Porter Jr. is. Yeah, he's a guy that scored 50 points against the Bucks, but he's not a winning player. He's a chucker. He's a guy that's just out there looking to get numbers and to score. And maybe early on in the stint, you did start to see some of that. But slowly but surely, a lot of that has been chipped away, and we have seen a point guard and a guy that knows how to initiate the offense, a guy that gets others involved, a guy that creates opportunities not only for himself but his teammates because of his ability to break down defenders and get into the paint. And to me, that remains maybe the biggest takeaway this season is, look, there's still plenty of season left. Things could change. But, as of this moment, I think a lot of us have watched Kevin Porter Jr. this season and said, I was wrong about what KPJ was and what he can bring to this team in terms of a winning culture. 855-616-1620, the Siding Unlimited talk and text line to join us tonight on Bucks Talk. Another win here for the Bucks, who have now won 8 of their last 10 games and go for a shot at a 3-1 homestand. All of those games against Eastern Conference playoff teams. We'll take a look at that matchup with the New York Knicks coming up after this on Bucks Talk.
The Hardwood Homilies continue after this. This is Bucks Talk.
Save big money on your dream kitchen upgrade with help from Menards. Clearview Cabinetry offers a selection of finishes made with the finest materials and built to withstand life's sticky messes. They provide features like soft closed doors and drawers and cabinet accessories to match your unique style. Save big money on Clearview Cabinets and check out our weekly flyer on Menards.com for more great deals happening this week.
Save big money at Menards.
Wesley Financial Group is not a law firm.
Ask yourself this question. Is it really worth holding on to that timeshare that you know you need to get rid of? Here's the truth. The average maintenance fee just went up over 17%. That could have been 117%, and there's nothing you can do about it. When you buy a timeshare, you give them a blank check for annual maintenance and assessment fees. I'm Chuck McDowell, founder of Wesley Financial Group. For 15 years, I've helped over 50,000 families cancel their timeshare. Not sell it, not transfer it, cancel it. Did you buy a timeshare because they told you it was a great investment and your maintenance fees would never go up? That's a lie. Are you ready to get rid of your timeshare once and for all? Simply call us and I'll send you our timeshare exit kit that explains all your options for cancellation.
Call Wesley now for your timeshare exit kit. 800-939-2525. That's 800-939-2525. 800-939-2525.
I think one of the things that patients don't realize is that when they get a joint replacement, that's not a lifetime treatment option. And they're probably, if they are a younger patient, signing up for multiple surgeries down the road.
As a physician and medical director for QC Kinetics, Dr. Caravelli's seen a pattern of trending joint pain. Prolonged medication, steroids, then surgery, possibly another surgery.
So a lot of our patients are trying to avoid or put off surgery, and this is the treatment that can help them do that.
QC Kinetics extracts your body's healing substances, concentrates them back into your aching joints to help heal and restore those areas, providing lasting relief.
Oh, I love being able to tell my patients, before we do this surgery, let's try another option. Let's see if this is right for you, because now they might not have to have surgery at all.
Call today for your free consultation.
Call QC Kinetics, 414-667-5559. That's 414-667-5559. 414-667-5559.
The time to start that home project is now. Get all the information you need to renovate your home during the Spring Home Improvement Showcase. Presented by Pella Windows and Doors of Wisconsin. Join us as we highlight the best partners for you to improve your home, including appliance gallery, comfort awnings, ridgetop exteriors, and outdoor living unlimited. Make your home the best it can be with the Spring Home Improvement Showcase on WTMJ.
This is Bucks Talk.
Back
Back here inside of Fiserv Forum, another Bucks victory as they hang on to take down the Cleveland Cavaliers tonight, 118 to 116. Doesn't matter who didn't play for the Cavs. What does matter is this Bucks team has continued to carry this momentum. An impressive bounce back last night against the Miami Heat after what was, no way around it other than saying it was a very, very disappointing performance against the Toronto Raptors on Sunday. They bounce back and beat a team that they need to beat when we talk about those most important games left on your schedule. Miami is one of those teams. You got 2 games left against them, now 1. And you have, again, put yourself in a position where you can win the tiebreaker against every single one of those 4 teams in front of you in the standings. You have already won it against the Charlotte Hornets, who are 28 and 31. You are up 1-0 on the Atlanta Hawks, so all you have to do is split those 2 games, and you will take the tiebreaker against Atlanta. 1 is at home, 1 is in Atlanta. If you win the final game in Miami, you win the tiebreaker against the Heat. And if you win the final game in Milwaukee against the Orlando Magic, you will win the tiebreaker against Orlando. So you're in a position where you can carry the tiebreaker against all 4 of those teams currently in the play-in tournament. So what you do in those games, those remaining games, now 4 of them, and what you do in those games left against the Indiana Pacers, 2 of them against the Brooklyn Nets, which are late in the season, the Chicago Bulls you've got on your schedule, the Memphis Grizzlies, who not really tanking per se, but hovering down there near the bottom of the Western Conference. You got the Dallas Mavericks on the schedule as well, so still some of those games remain, and the Utah Jazz, both of those games remain for the Bucks as the Jazz continue to make things interesting here. Up next, though, is the New York Knicks, who, by way of this win tonight from the Cleveland Cavaliers, have moved, or loss by the Cleveland Cavaliers, have moved into sole possession of 3rd place in the Eastern Conference. And remember, the Knicks lost to the Cavaliers last night. But it is a Knicks team that just continues to be up and down. 6-4 in their last 10 games. Defense has not been the name of the game for the New York Knicks this season. After really cutting their teeth as a defensive team under Tom Thibodeau, they made some personnel changes the last couple of years, and that's carried over to more of an offensive approach for this Knicks team. Only 14-14 at home. Right, similar to what we've talked about for the Bucks, who are 14-13 at home. I beg your pardon, 22-8 at home. They're 14-14 on the road. Bucks are 14-13 at home on the season. They've been basically 500. So how can they start to find some more of those wins? If you're going to be currently 12-18, if you're going to be around there below 500 on the road, you better be pretty good on the road at home. Bucks just have not done that so far this season, but it's a Knicks team that has just been up and down for the course of this season. It's a Knicks team, too, that, again, with that loss to Cleveland last night, they get some time off. They don't have to worry about a back-to-back. They're going to come into Milwaukee well-rested with 2 days off leading into that game. So how do the Bucks respond in that sense, where this is going to be one of the few games over this stretch of 7 remaining leading into the Bucks shifting out of a home-heavy schedule where the Bucks don't have the rest advantage. They did tonight, right? Even though they both played on the road, the Bucks and the Cavaliers, so they both played last night. Cleveland had to travel to Milwaukee. So you're going to get a well-rested New York Knicks team, but a team that has just continued to play up and down so far this season. One of the biggest wins of the season earlier in the year for the Bucks was against the New York Knicks. That was the game that set them to 4-1 on the season. That 121-111 victory, and it was a stretch where we saw the Knicks start the season 2-3. Now, to that yo-yo effect, the best we've seen from New York, they got up to 19-7 on the season, but a 4-game losing streak shortly after that. Another 4-game losing streak shortly after that. Then they peeled off another win streak of 9 games to get to 33-18. So that's kind of been the norm for New York. They're going to drop 8 out of 10 games or whatever it was, then promptly go on and win 8 or 9 consecutive games. That's the up and down play we've seen so far from them. They've gone 3-3 in their last 6, if you want to look at it that way. This is the end of a 3-game road trip that started in Chicago with a win. They lost in Cleveland, and then they come to Milwaukee on Friday. But this launches the Knicks into a much more difficult schedule. So what version of the Knicks are you going to be seeing on the final game of a road trip leading into a big stretch of games? Sunday afternoon, hosting the San Antonio Spurs and Victor Wembanyama. Just a couple of days after that, hosting the Oklahoma City Thunder, currently the Western Conference leaders. Then just a couple of days after that, they go to Denver to take on the Nuggets. Then 2 days after that, another afternoon game on national TV in Los Angeles against the Lakers. So a lot of those games on the horizon for the New York Knicks is they've got 4 of their next 7 games are national TV games. And every coach will tell you, your first game back at home and your last game after a road trip, like those are the ones to look at and say, how do we look here? Right? Are we at risk of not starting on the right foot here or ending things on the right foot? Because we can see not only, all right, this is the end of the road trip, we get to go home just after this game, but in the case of this Knicks schedule, hey, we got Wemby and the Spurs coming to town after we get through the Bucks. We got Shea and the Thunder coming to town shortly after that. We got the Lakers on the schedule. We got a lot of Western Conference teams. This is what we're focused on. Same as we mentioned with that Thunder game. You know, you're going to have to play Oklahoma City twice. I'll take one of those 2 games being the final game leading into the All-Star break. So maybe, just maybe, even though the Bucks don't have the rest advantage in this game, the advantage they have is they got to stay home throughout this whole stretch. Maybe this being the end of the road trip for the Knicks and that schedule that waits just after this is actually going to be a good thing for the Bucks in that matchup with New York, because I'll tell you this much, if you can get to 3-1 on this homestand, you are going to be, and frankly should, be expected to win that game in Chicago on Sunday. The next homestand for the Bucks is a 5-gamer. And that starts Monday with the Boston Celtics. Now, Jason Tatum, it sounds like he's going to be making a return any minute now. Who knows when that is? Then 2 days later, arguably the biggest game left on the schedule for the Bucks, the Atlanta Hawks come to Milwaukee. Again, one of those teams just in front of you in the standings, and you win that game, you win. You secure the tiebreaker against Atlanta, and it counts as 2. It's a win for you and a loss for them. Game number 3 on the homestand for the Bucks is you get 2 days off. Then that Utah Jazz team comes to town, who by the way, just continue to thumb their nose at the NBA. Fined $500,000 for the tanking, not tanking approach they've taken this season. Then yesterday they announced Yusuf Nurkic is out for the season to repair a deviated septum. Now Lauri Markkanen may have to undergo surgery that would shut down his season. Jaren Jackson Jr. has already undergone season-ending surgery. And now reports coming out of Utah that the league is set to get involved if Lauri Markkanen does undergo a surgery and wants to have an independent party review his medical files to make sure there is actually an injury here. But just to get you up to speed, that's how things are going in Utah and how much they are actively not trying to win games. So that's game number 3 on your homestand. Game number 4 is another one of those important games, and that is Sunday with the Orlando Magic. 1 week from this Sunday, the Orlando Magic come to Milwaukee for a game, and then you wrap up the homestand with the Phoenix Suns on March 11th after another couple of days off there. So that's that stretch that the Bucks are looking at. This was far and away the more challenging one. If you could get through that, and if you can get through that at 3-1, that sets you up for a lot of success here to close out the month of February. We would already be doing that, but to start the month of March on a high note with some of those teams on your schedule. And again, the opportunity to continue to shrink that margin in the standings. So the latest on the standings and what the numbers suggest, we'll dig into those details as we wrap things up after this. Again, Bucks victorious once again. They've won 8 out of their last 10 games as they hang on to take down the Cleveland Cavaliers tonight, 118-116. We're back with more after this on Bucks Talk.
This is Bucks Talk.
Heart disease won't stop us. Diabetes, allergies, cancer. Nothing will keep the Froedtert and the Medical College of Wisconsin Health Network from pushing Wisconsin ahead. We're constantly raising the bar for medical excellence and providing more ways to receive it, so you have it for all your health needs, big and small. Let's push ahead, and we'll make life here as great as it can be. Visit Froedtert.com to find out how.
3 generations ago, it was about doing one thing and doing it right.
Hardwood, tile, carpet, floors that had to last because our name, Adair, was on them. Over time, homeowners asked us to do more. Kitchens, bathrooms, full remodels. And so our name changed to Adair Floors and Remodeling.
But flooring has always been the foundation, literally.
And it's something the next generation already understands.
Hi, I'm Ava. Hi, I'm Quinn. My dad does floors.
From hardwood and luxury vinyl plank to tile and carpet, we handle selection, layout, and professional installation.
And because we also remodel homes, we know how flooring works with everything else. Transitions, finishes, and long-term durability.
When you hire Adair, you're getting experience you can stand on and people who will be here for decades to come.
Call my dad. Bye-bye.
Adair Floors and Remodeling. Built on flooring, trusted for remodels. 3 generations, 1 standard. Call us at 414-761-3660 for your free flooring estimate.
Confidence is knowing you're ready to handle whatever comes your way. That's what it feels like to take on your workday with Cintas. They make sure your AEDs are up to date, your fire extinguishers are tested and inspected, your floor mats are cleaned and delivered, and your workwear looks good, feels good, and is freshly laundered with the Cintas Apparel Plus program. So are you ready to take on today? Visit Cintas.com.
Oh, I'm ready!
And get ready for the workday.
Career changers, including veterans and active duty service members. Your transition starts here. Go from GI to IT in a matter of months. Become a certified cyber warrior with training at My Computer Career. Cybersecurity specialists are in high demand, offering IT pros great opportunities and a rewarding lifestyle while protecting our people, liberty, and treasured institutions from cyber threats. Deploy your career in IT today at mycomputercareer.edu/CWP, an elite CompTIA certification partner.
VA education benefits are available to those who qualify.
Welcome back to Bucks Talk.
118-116, our final tonight. The Bucks hang on. Jared Allen finishes with 27 points tonight. He needed 29 as the replay showed. Ball still on his hands as the clock expires, and the Bucks outlast the Cleveland Cavaliers to pick up their 8th win in their last 10 tries. So with this win, the Bucks are 26-31 on the season. Charlotte Hornets are 28-31. They're currently 10th. The Atlanta Hawks are 29-31. They are currently 9th. So each of those 2 teams tied in the loss column with the Bucks. The difference is wins. You do have 2 games left against Atlanta. That is the easiest way to make up the ground in the wins column there. You're done with Charlotte. You have 1 game left with Miami, and Miami currently 3 games up on you in the loss column. The Sixers and Magic are currently 6 and 7. They are 5 games up in the loss column. And at that point, 5 games at this point in the season with, 57 games into the season, so 5 games left with 25 to play. That's asking a lot. Realistically, the ceiling for this group may be the 8th seed, but there is a huge difference in getting to 8 versus finishing 9th or 10th. If you finish 9th or 10th, you have to win 2 games just to make the playoffs. No margin for error. And if you're number 10, you got to win 2 games on the road to get into the playoffs. If you're 7 and 8, the way it works, 7 plays 8. The winner of that game is the 7th seed, and they go on to play the 2 seed. The loser is still alive, just set to the side. 9 and 10 seeds play each other. The loser of that game is eliminated, and the winner then plays whoever lost the 7 versus 8 seed. So you want to get on that 7-8 line because you can go 1-1 and still qualify for the playoffs. As of this moment, the Bucks have a 53% chance to reach the postseason, according to PlayoffStatus.com. Most likely scenario is still the 10 seed for this group. But their chance of getting the 10 seed is moving almost identical to the Charlotte Hornets right now. It is identical to the Atlanta Hawks. And a pretty similar story there. By the numbers, you see it reflected here as well. As I said, the 8 seed may be your ceiling. That's where we see the drop-off. Once you move up to 7, it becomes well down in the low single digits in terms of the Bucks' percent chances. But look, as we said at the start of the show to begin things here, what is going to determine that more than anything else? What you do in that game remaining against Orlando, in those 2 games remaining against the Atlanta Hawks, in that game remaining against the Miami Heat. That is going to decide where this Bucks team finishes the season, if they get into the postseason or not, and where they're doing that from. The other good news for the Bucks, and it's only going to get better once that game against the Knicks is in the books on Friday, but as of this moment, the Bucks have the 11th easiest schedule remaining in the league. The only team that is in the playoff chase in that position where the Bucks are that has an easier schedule is the Atlanta Hawks. Atlanta has the 7th easiest schedule remaining. But the Charlotte Hornets, the Miami Heat, they both have more challenging schedules the rest of the way than the Bucks. So take care of business in those games and hope that schedule starts to make an impact and really pays off in your favor. And that is your path to success. Continue what you're doing and take care of business in those games in front of you. Control what you can control is basically the message for this group. Friday nights, we get going again. The Bucks and the New York Knicks, game number 4 on the homestand. That is a 7 o'clock tip-off here inside of Fiserv Forum. 6:30 is when the pregame coverage begins. And as always, be sure to stick around after the game for Bucks Talk. We will talk with you then.
Good Karma Brands is proud to be an equal opportunity